She spent a lively night with a stranger. The next day, he hired her as his personal assistant. Hello, let's hear another incredible story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I love narrating stories for you, so get ready. Let's start. The amber liquid in Maya Johnson's martini glass caught the dim lighting of the Metropolitan, one of Manhattan's most expensive bars, a place she definitely couldn't afford, especially now. She swirled the olive around with her finger, a habit her grandmother Dorothy would have scolded her for, and calculated how long she could make this $20 drink last. 3 days since she'd been fired. 3 days since she'd broken her boss's nose with a right hook that would have made her grandmother proud. "You're nursing that drink like it's liquid gold," a deep voice observed from beside her. Maya glanced up to find a man sliding onto the adjacent bar stool, tall, completely bald head gleaming under the bar lights, with a perfectly groomed beard that made him look like some kind of modern-day Viking in an expensive suit. He was the type of man who probably owned more in watches than she made in a year. Maybe because it is, Maya shot back, not in the mood for small talk with some Wall Street type. $20 for what's essentially cold gin with a drowning olive. The stranger let out a genuine laugh, rich and warm. "Fair point, Marcus Thompson." He extended his hand, flashing a smile that was probably responsible for closing million-dollar deals. "Maya," she replied, shaking his hand briefly, deliberately omitting her last name. "And let me guess, you just closed some massive deal and you're here celebrating by buying overpriced alcohol to flex on us common folk." Marcus raised an eyebrow, clearly unused to being challenged. "Actually, I was on the phone getting reamed out by investors about a project that's hemorrhaging money. Lost about 50 million today, give or take." "Oh no," Maya deadpanned, pressing her hand to her chest in mock sympathy. "However will you survive? You might have to sell one of your yachts." "Bold of you to assume I have multiple yachts." Marcus grinned, signaling the bartender. "2 more of whatever the lady's having and make them doubles." "I didn't agree to another drink," Maya protested, though she didn't move to leave. "Consider it compensation for providing the most honest conversation I've had in months. Everyone else just tells me what they think I want to hear." Maya studied his face, searching for the usual patronizing smirk she'd come to expect from men in expensive suits. Instead, she found something that looked almost like loneliness. "Fine. But I'm not going to suddenly start kissing your ass because you bought me alcohol." "Wouldn't dream of it," Marcus said, accepting the fresh drinks from the bartender. "So, Maya no last name, what brings you to this overpriced establishment besides the drowning olives?" "Job hunting," she said simply, taking a sip of her new drink. "Well, former job fleeing might be more accurate." "Let me guess, difficult boss?" Maya snorted. "You could say that." "He had wandering hands and a superiority complex. I introduced his face to my fist." Marcus nearly choked on his whiskey. "You punched your boss square in the nose," made a very satisfying crunching sound. Maya's eyes sparkled with the memory. "Turns out corporate America frowns upon employees defending themselves against sexual harassment. Who knew?" "Jesus," Marcus muttered, his expression shifting from amusement to something more serious. "I'm sorry. That's not okay." The sincerity in his voice caught Maya off guard. She'd expected judgment, or worse, dismissal. "Yeah, well, the lawyers disagreed. Apparently, there's a proper procedure for these things that doesn't involve breaking nasal cartilage." "Their loss," Marcus said firmly. "Taku, any company that would fire someone for standing up to harassment doesn't deserve them anyway." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of Maya's situation settling between them. Around them, the bar hummed with the low conversations of Manhattan's elite, but their corner felt oddly isolated, like they existed in their own bubble. "So what do you do?" Maya asked, gesturing vaguely at his obviously expensive attire. Besides lose $50 million before dinner." "Real estate development," Marcus replied. "I build things, hotels, office complexes, residential towers, though lately it feels more like I'm just moving money around on spreadsheets." Sounds soul-crushing, Maya observed. No wonder you're drinking alone in an overpriced bar. What about you? Before the whole face-punching incident? Architect, Maya said, a note of pride creeping into her voice. Despite everything, I design things that are supposed to make people's lives better. Community centers, affordable housing, places where real people actually live and work. Marcus leaned forward, genuinely interested. That's incredible. Most architects I know are more concerned with winning awards than changing lives. Yeah, well, turns out idealism doesn't pay the bills, Maya said bitterly, especially when you're blacklisted for having a difficult personality. Difficult personality, Marcus repeated. Is that what they're calling backbone these days? Maya looked at him sharply, surprised by his understanding. You know what? You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Another entitled rich boy who thinks throwing money around makes him interesting. Maya paused, studying his face. But you actually listen when people talk. That's rare. Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the alcohol. You're not what I expected either. What did you expect? Someone who would pretend to laugh at my jokes and agree with everything I said. He met her eyes. But you'd rather tell me exactly what you think, even if it's brutal. Especially if it's brutal, Maya grinned. And for the first time all evening, it reached her eyes. As the night wore on, their conversation flowed from architecture to childhood dreams, from family disappointments to secret fears. Maya found herself laughing at Marcus's surprisingly self-deprecating humor, while Marcus discovered a brilliant, passionate woman who refused to be diminished by the world's attempts to silence her. By the time last call was announced, they had migrated to a corner booth, sitting closer than strangers should, their conversation having shifted from playful banter to something deeper, more vulnerable. I should go, Maya said, though she made no move to leave. Oh, you should, Marcus agreed, his eyes fixed on her lips. Neither of them moved. The kiss, when it finally happened, tasted like whiskey and possibility, like everything Maya had been missing and everything Marcus hadn't known he was searching for. It was supposed to be just one kiss, just a perfect ending to an unexpected night. But as they broke apart, breathless and wanting, both of them knew this night was far from over. And neither of them had any idea that this moment, this choice to follow each other into the unknown, would change everything. Maya's eyes fluttered open to unfamiliar Egyptian cotton sheets and the kind of morning light that only filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a blissful moment, she floated in that space between sleep and consciousness, her body humming with the memory of hands that knew exactly how to touch her, of whispered words that had made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. Then reality crashed in like a freight train. She bolted upright, clutching the sheet to her chest, taking in the masculine bedroom that screamed wealth, exposed brick walls, modern art that probably cost more than her car, and a view of Central Park that real estate agents killed for. The space where Marcus had been sleeping was empty, but she could hear the distant sound of a shower running. What the hell did you do, Maya? Her clothes were scattered across the hardwood floor like evidence of her temporary insanity. She'd slept with a complete stranger. Worse, she'd enjoyed it, more than enjoyed it. She'd lost herself completely in those dark eyes and skillful hands, forgotten every wall she'd carefully built around her heart. The shower shut off. Panic shot through her system like adrenaline. She couldn't do the morning after conversation, couldn't pretend this was anything more than what it was, a night of escape from her catastrophic life. She'd already made enough bad decisions lately. She didn't need to add catching feelings for a rich stranger to the list. Maya grabbed her clothes, hopping on one foot as she pulled on her jeans. Her blouse was wrinkled beyond salvation, but it would have to do. She could hear Marcus moving around in the bathroom, humming something that made her chest tighten with an emotion she refused to name. The bedroom door was her finish line. Just make it to the door, down the hallway, and out of this gilded cage before... Maya, Marcus's voice drifted from the bathroom. I was thinking we could grab breakfast. There's this little place in the village that makes incredible. She was already moving, bare feet silent on the marble hallway floor. The penthouse was a maze of expensive furniture and abstract art, but she followed the scent of coffee toward what she hoped was the kitchen and, more importantly, the exit. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she passed a massive living room with windows that showcased half of Manhattan. This wasn't her world. She was a girl from Brooklyn who ate ramen for dinner and shopped at thrift stores. Last night had been beautiful and impossible and completely unsustainable. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding that sounded like freedom. "Maya!" Marcus's voice was closer now, tinged with confusion. "Where?" The doors slid shut, just as she caught a glimpse of him in the hallway, wearing nothing but a towel around his waist, water still dripping from his hair. The expression on his face, surprise, hurt, something that might have been disappointment, made her stomach clench with guilt. But it was better this way, cleaner. Before either of them could pretend last night was anything more than a beautiful mistake. As the elevator descended, Maya caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. Her hair was a disaster, her makeup smudged, and there was a mark on her neck that made her cheeks burn with the memory of Marcus's mouth against her skin. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman doing the walk of shame in yesterday's clothes. "Focus, Maya. You have a job interview in 3 hours. Time to get your shit together." But as she stepped onto the sidewalk and hailed a taxi, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was running from something that might have been worth staying for. Marcus stood at his bedroom window, watching Maya disappear into a yellow cab 50 floors below. The towel around his waist had grown cold, but he couldn't seem to move. In his hand, he clutched the black leather wallet she'd dropped in her hasty escape. Maya Elizabeth Johnson, 28 years old. Brooklyn address, and according to her business card tucked behind her driver's license, a licensed architect with a specialty in sustainable community development. He should throw the wallet away, forget about the woman who'd turned his carefully ordered world upside down in the span of one night. She'd made her choice clear by running. He was Marcus Thompson. He didn't chase women. He didn't need to. But as he studied her driver's license photo, a formal shot that captured none of the fire he'd seen in her eyes last night, he felt something shift in his chest. For the first time in years, maybe ever, he'd met someone who wasn't impressed by his money or intimidated by his reputation. Someone who'd looked at him and seen just a man, and she'd run. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. "Don't forget, interviews for the PA position start at 2 p.m. We have 5 candidates lined up." Marcus set Maya's wallet on his dresser, next to the Rolex he'd forgotten to put on last night. He had a company to run, deals to close, a life that didn't have room for beautiful, complicated women who punched their bosses and made him forget his own name. But he couldn't throw the wallet away. Not yet. 3 hours later, Maya stood outside the gleaming Thompson Enterprises building, trying to calm her racing heart. The interview had taken weeks to arrange, and it was her last real shot at a decent job. Her savings account was down to double digits, and her pride wouldn't let her move back in with her mother in Queens. She'd managed to shower and change into her only good interview suit, a black blazer and pencil skirt that her grandmother had bought her for graduation. The outfit made her feel armored, professional, ready to convince some corporate executive that she was worth taking a chance on. The lobby was all marble and steel, designed to intimidate. Maya's heels clicked against the polished floor as she approached the reception desk, where a perfectly groomed woman with a Bluetooth headset looked up with a practiced smile. "Maya Johnson for the 2 p.m. interview," Maya announced, proud that her voice sounded steady. "38th floor. Executive suite. Mr. Thompson is ready for you." Maya's step faltered. "Thompson?" "Yes, Marcus Thompson, the CEO. He's conducting the interviews personally today." The receptionist's smile never wavered. "The elevators are just past the fountain." Maya's blood turned to ice. Thompson, Marcus Thompson. The same Marcus who'd whispered her name like a prayer just hours ago, who'd made her feel things she'd forgotten she was capable of feeling. No, 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 this can't be happening. But as the elevator climbed toward the 38th floor, Maya knew with absolute certainty that her perfectly compartmentalized life was about to explode into a million pieces. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows and abstract art that probably cost more than most people's houses. At the far end, double doors stood slightly ajar, and Maya could see a slice of an executive office beyond. Her feet moved forward without her permission, carrying her toward what felt like her own execution. With each step, her heart beat harder, until she was sure everyone in the building could hear it. She reached the doorway and knocked twice, sharp and professional. "Come in!" That voice, rich, warm, unmistakably familiar. Maya took a breath that felt like swallowing glass and pushed open the door. Marcus Thompson sat behind a massive mahogany desk, wearing a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made for his body, which it probably had. His dark eyes lifted from the papers in front of him, and for a moment the world stopped spinning. Recognition flickered across his features, followed by something that might have been amusement. A slow smile spread across his face, the same smile that had undone her completely just 12 hours ago. "Ms. Johnson," he said, his voice perfectly controlled, perfectly professional. "What an unexpected pleasure." Maya's mouth went dry. She stood frozen in the doorway, her carefully rehearsed introduction evaporating like morning mist. Marcus, Mr. Thompson, leaned back in his leather chair, studying her with the same intensity he'd used to memorize every curve of her body just hours ago. "Please," he gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Have a seat." Her legs moved on autopilot, carrying her to the chair while her mind screamed at her to run. Again. But she couldn't afford to run. Not from this job. Not when her bank account was circling the drain, and her pride was the only thing keeping her from moving back in with her mother. "I have to say," Marcus continued, his voice carrying just the hint of amusement, "your resume is quite impressive. Top of your class at Columbia, 3 years at Morrison and Associates." He paused, those dark eyes finding hers. "Though I notice there's a gap in your employment history." "Recent gap?" Maya's jaw clenched. Of course he'd done his homework. "I left my previous position due to philosophical differences with management." Philosophical differences. Marcus picked up a pen. Expensive, silver, the kind that probably cost more than her monthly subway pass, and twirled it between his fingers. Would these philosophical differences happen to involve workplace harassment policies? The question hit like a slap. Maya's spine straightened, her chin lifting in defiance. "I believe employees have the right to work in an environment free from sexual harassment. If that makes me difficult to work with, then we might not be a good fit." "On the contrary," Marcus said, setting down the pen with deliberate precision. "I find honesty refreshing. Too many people tell me what they think I want to hear." The words echoed from their conversation the night before, and Maya felt heat creep up her neck. Was he doing this on purpose, playing some kind of game? "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I think we should address the elephant in the room." "Should we?" His eyebrow arched, and that ghost of a smile played at the corners of his mouth. "I'm not sure what you mean, bastard." He was going to make her say it. "Last night was last night," Marcus interrupted smoothly. "Today is today. I'm conducting interviews for a personal assistant position, and you're a candidate, unless you have some objection to that arrangement." Maya stared at him, searching for any crack in his professional facade, but Marcus Thompson, CEO, was apparently very different from Marcus, the man who'd whispered her name against her throat in the dark. This version was controlled, unreadable, holding all the cards. "No objection," she managed. "Excellent." Marcus opened a leather portfolio and withdrew what looked suspiciously like her wallet. Maya's heart stopped. "You left this behind this morning. Careless." He slid it across the desk, and their fingers brushed as she took it. The contact lasted maybe half a second, but it was enough to send electricity shooting up her arm. From the slight intake of breath she heard, Marcus felt it too. "Thank you," Maya said, clutching the wallet like a lifeline. "The position," Marcus continued, as if nothing had happened, "requires discretion above all else. You'd be handling sensitive information, managing my calendar, traveling with me for business meetings. The work can be intimate. Close quarters, long hours, high-stress situations." Every word felt loaded with double meaning, and Maya fought to keep her expression neutral. "I'm comfortable with demanding work environments." "Are you?" Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. "Because the last thing I need is an assistant who can't handle pressure, who might run away when things get complicated." Direct hit. Maya's cheeks burned, but she held his gaze. "I don't make a habit of running away from my responsibilities, Mr. Thompson." "Glad to hear it." Marcus stood, moving around the desk with the fluid grace of a predator. He perched on the edge, close enough that Maya could smell his cologne, the same scent that had clung to her skin this morning. "Tell me, Miss Johnson, what makes you think you can handle working for me?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with subtext. Maya's pulse hammered in her throat, but she forced herself to meet his challenge head-on. "Because I'm not intimidated by powerful men who think they can push people around," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. "I speak my mind, I work hard, and I don't kiss ass just because someone signs my paycheck, even if that someone could make or break your career." Especially then. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Surprise, maybe even respect. "You punched your last boss." He had it coming. "What makes you think I won't have it coming?" Maya smiled then, sharp and dangerous. "I guess we'll find out." The silence stretched between them, thick with tension that had nothing to do with the job interview and everything to do with the way Marcus was looking at her mouth, the way her body was responding to his proximity, despite every rational thought screaming at her to maintain professional distance. Marcus's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. He glanced at it and frowned. "I have another call I need to take." He moved back behind his desk, putting safe distance between them. "The position comes with a substantial salary, full benefits, and opportunities for advancement. You'd start Monday if you accept." "Just like that?" Maya asked, surprised. "Don't you want to check my references, interview other candidates?" Marcus's smile was predatory. "I've seen enough. You're exactly what I need, Miss Johnson." He picked up his phone, then paused. "One more thing. What happened last night? It doesn't happen again. This is strictly professional. Are we clear?" Maya stood, smoothing down her skirt with hands that were steadier than she felt. "Crystal clear, Mr. Thompson." "Good." Marcus's eyes followed her movement, lingering just long enough to make her skin heat. "BILLIONAIRE at the front desk will give you the paperwork. Welcome to Thompson Enterprises." Maya walked to the door, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She could feel Marcus watching her every step, and it took all her willpower not to look back. "Miss Johnson." She paused at the doorway, her hand on the brass handle. "Yes? Don't be late Monday." "I hate when people keep me waiting." Maya turned just enough to catch his eye, that dangerous smile playing on her lips again. "I wouldn't dream of it." As the door closed behind her, Maya leaned against the hallway wall and tried to catch her breath. What the hell had she just gotten herself into? Behind the closed door, Marcus stared at the space where Maya had been standing, his carefully maintained control cracking like ice in spring. He'd hired her. After everything, the incredible night, her dramatic exit, the wallet that sat on his dresser like an accusation, he'd actually hired her. He picked up the pen she'd been watching him fidget with and realized his hands weren't quite steady. Working with Maya Johnson was either going to be the best decision he'd ever made, or it was going to destroy them both. Either way, Monday couldn't come fast enough. Maya's first day at Thompson Enterprises began at 6:47 a.m. with a text that made her blood pressure spike. "Conference room A, 7 a.m. sharp. Don't bring coffee. I have standards. M." She stared at her phone, torn between irritation and something that felt dangerously like anticipation. 3 days had passed since the interview. 3 days of trying to convince herself that working for Marcus Thompson would be just another job, that she could compartmentalize the night they'd shared, lock it away in some corner of her mind where it couldn't complicate her desperately needed paycheck. Standing outside Conference Room A at exactly 7 a.m., wearing her most conservative black suit like armor, Maya realized she'd been lying to herself. Marcus sat at the head of a gleaming conference table, perfectly pressed in navy blue, not a hair out of place. If she hadn't known better, she might have thought he was just another corporate executive, but she had seen him vulnerable, had felt him come apart under her touch, and the knowledge sat between them like a loaded gun. "Punctual," Marcus observed, without looking up from his tablet. "Good. Sit." Maya bristled at the command, but took the chair to his right, close enough to smell that damned cologne, far enough to maintain the pretense of professionalism. "Your duties," Marcus began, sliding a leather portfolio across the table, "include managing my calendar, screening calls, preparing briefs for meetings, and accompanying me to business functions. The Hartwell project alone will require significant travel over the next month." "Travel with him?" Maya's stomach clenched. "I understand. Do you?" Marcus finally looked at her, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. "And because I need to be absolutely certain we're on the same page, Ms. Johnson. What happened between us doesn't exist," Maya finished firmly. "You made that very clear." "Good." But something flickered across his face that looked almost like disappointment. "Your first task is reorganizing my office. My previous assistant had different organizational standards." Marcus led her to his executive office, and Maya's professional facade nearly cracked. The space was chaos, papers scattered across every surface, books stacked in precarious towers, pens scattered like casualties of war. For someone who projected such control, his personal workspace looked like a tornado had blown through it. "You want me to organize this disaster?" Maya asked, unable to hide her horror. "Problem?" Marcus's voice carried a challenge. "No problem." Maya rolled up her sleeves, already mentally cataloguing the work ahead. "But I'm doing this my way. Your way? Everything has a place, and everything goes in its place. No exceptions." Maya picked up a handful of expensive pens from his desk, examining them like evidence. "Starting with these." She began sorting the pens by type and color, arranging them in the desktop organizer with methodical precision. It was mindless work, soothing in its simplicity, and she lost herself in the rhythm of creating order from chaos. What she didn't notice was Marcus watching her every movement, fascination and something deeper flickering in his expression. "You're very—" Marcus paused, searching for the right word. "Anal retentive," Maya suggested without looking up. "Thorough." The way he said it made heat pool low in her belly, and Maya's hands stilled on the pens. When she glanced up, Marcus was studying her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. "It's just organization," she said, her voice slightly breathless. "Is it?" Marcus moved closer, ostensibly to observe her work, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Because you look like you're conducting surgery." Maya became hyper-aware of everything, the way her fingers moved over the smooth metal of the pens, the way Marcus's breathing had changed, the electricity that seemed to arc between them despite the professional setting. "I like things neat," she managed. "I noticed." Marcus reached for a pen at the same moment Maya did, their fingers brushing. The contact lasted only a second, but it was enough to send shockwaves through her entire system. Maya jerked her hand back like she'd been burned. The filing system needs—" "Maya?" Her name on his lips was rough, intimate, nothing like the controlled professionalism he'd maintained all morning. She looked up, and the mask had slipped. The man staring down at her wasn't Marcus Thompson, CEO. This was the man who had whispered her name in the dark, who had made her forget every reason why she should protect her heart. "We can't," she whispered. "I know." But he didn't step away. The office door burst open with a cheerful knock, and a man in his 60s appeared, carrying a silver tea service. He was impeccably dressed in a crisp white shirt and bow tie, with kind eyes that missed nothing. "Forgive the interruption, Mr. Marcus," the man said with a slight British accent, though his eyes twinkled with obvious delight at the scene before him. "I thought you and the new assistant might appreciate some proper tea." Marcus stepped back so quickly he nearly knocked over a stack of files. "Williams, this is Maya Johnson. Maya, this is Williams. Well, he runs everything that actually matters around here." Williams set down the tea service with practiced ease, and Maya could swear she saw him hide a smile. "Ms. Johnson, it's a pleasure to meet you. Mr. Marcus has been quite energetic since your interview." "Energetic?" Maya raised an eyebrow. He reorganized his sock drawer. Williams said solemnly, "Twice." Marcus shot his assistant a warning look that Williams ignored completely. "Well," Williams continued, pouring tea into delicate china cups, "I'll leave you both to your organizing. The Hartwell clients will arrive at 10, Mr. Marcus. I've prepared the contracts for review." As Williams headed for the door, he paused and turned back to Maya. "Miss Johnson, Mr. Marcus takes his tea with 2 sugars and a splash of cream. Just in case you were wondering." The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Maya and Marcus alone with the heavy silence and the scent of Earl Grey. "He's," Maya began, "a meddling old man with boundary issues." Marcus finished, but his tone was fond. I was going to say perceptive. Marcus picked up his teacup, his fingers steady despite the chaos Maya could see brewing in his eyes. "Maya, about what just happened?" "Nothing happened," Maya said quickly, focusing intently on arranging the last of the pens. "We're working, professionally, that's all." But even as she said it, she could feel Marcus watching her, could sense the way his control was fraying at the edges. And despite every logical reason to maintain their professional boundaries, Maya found herself hoping it would snap completely. After all, some rules were made to be broken. The Hartwell meeting was supposed to be routine, a simple contract review for a luxury hotel development in the Hamptons. Maya had spent the morning preparing briefing materials, arranging the conference room, and telling herself that she could absolutely handle 3 hours in a professional setting with Marcus without combusting. She was wrong. It started with the way Marcus commanded the room, his voice authoritative as he outlined project timelines to the Hartwell executives. Maya found herself watching the way his hands moved as he spoke, remembering how those same hands had mapped every inch of her body just days ago. "Miss Johnson?" Maya snapped back to attention to find 5 pairs of eyes staring at her expectantly. Heat flooded her cheeks as she realized Marcus had asked her a question she hadn't heard. "The zoning permits," Marcus said smoothly, covering for her distraction. "You were going to update Mr. Hartwell on the status?" Maya's mind went blank. She fumbled for her notes, hyper-aware of Marcus's intense gaze. "The permits are progressing, on schedule." It was a pathetic answer, and everyone in the room knew it. Robert Hartwell, a silver-haired man with sharp eyes, frowned. "Progressing how? Exactly. We need specifics." Maya's professional confidence, so carefully constructed, began to crumble. She could feel Marcus's disappointment like a physical weight. "What Ms. Johnson means," Marcus intervened, his voice cool, "is that we're waiting on final approval from the County Planning Committee. We expect confirmation by Friday." The meeting continued, but Maya felt like she was drowning. Every time Marcus looked at her, she lost her train of thought. When he leaned close to whisper a clarification about contract terms, his proximity sent her nervous system into overdrive. By the time the Hartwell team left, Maya wanted to disappear into the floor. "My office," Marcus said quietly. "Now." Maya followed him on unsteady legs, closing the door behind her with hands that trembled slightly. Marcus stood behind his desk, his expression unreadable. What the hell was that?" His voice was controlled, but she could hear the frustration underneath. "I'm sorry, You were completely unprepared. Distracted. That's not the woman I interviewed last week." Maya's temper flared. Maybe that's because the woman you interviewed wasn't trying to work for a man she'd slept with. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Marcus's jaw clenched, and when he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. Is that what this is about? You can't do your job because we spent one night together. Can you? Maya shot back. Because you've been staring at me all morning like you're trying to undress me with your eyes. Marcus moved around the desk with predatory grace. I've been nothing but professional. Professional? Maya laughed bitterly. You hired me because of what happened between us, not despite it. We both know it. That's not, isn't it? Maya stepped closer, her chin lifted in defiance. Tell me you would have hired any other candidate who performed that badly in an interview. Marcus's eyes darkened. You think I hired you because the sex was good? The crude words hit like a slap, but Maya didn't flinch. Wasn't it? Something dangerous flashed across Marcus's face. He stepped closer, close enough that Maya had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. The sex was incredible, he said quietly, but I hired you because you're brilliant and brave, and you don't take shit from anyone, including me. Then why do I feel like I'm losing my mind? The words slipped out before Maya could stop them, raw and honest. Marcus's facade finally cracked. Because I can't stop thinking about you, he admitted roughly. Because every time you bite your lip when you're concentrating, I remember what it felt like to kiss you. Because this professional distance we're supposed to maintain is killing me. The confession hung between them, dangerous and electric. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as Marcus reached up, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. We can't do this, she whispered. I know. But his thumb traced along her jawline, and Maya's eyes fluttered closed. Or if anyone finds out, I know. His forehead rested against hers, and Maya could feel his control hanging by a thread. The intercom on Marcus's desk crackled to life. Mr. Thompson, your 2 o'clock appointment is here. Marcus jerked back like he'd been electrocuted, and Maya stumbled backward, her hand flying to her cheek where she could still feel the ghost of his touch. Send them in, Marcus said into the intercom, his voice steady despite the chaos in his eyes. Maya smoothed down her skirt with shaking hands. I should go. Maya. She paused at the door, not trusting herself to look back. This ends here. We're professionals. Nothing more. Maya nodded without turning around. Of course. Nothing more. But as she walked back to her desk on unsteady legs, Maya knew they were both lying. The attraction between them wasn't something that could be filed away or organized into neat professional categories. It was a living thing, growing stronger every moment they tried to deny it, and Maya was terrified of what would happen when it finally broke free. Maya spent her lunch break hiding in the building's cafe, picking at a salad she couldn't taste while replaying every mortifying moment of the morning. She'd almost kissed her boss, again, in his office, during work hours. Get it together, Johnson. You're better than this. But as she stabbed a cherry tomato with unnecessary violence, Maya had to admit that better than this felt like a distant memory. Ever since walking into Marcus's office on Monday, she'd been operating in a fog of sexual tension and professional anxiety that was slowly driving her insane. Rough morning. Maya looked up to find William standing beside her table, holding a cup of tea and wearing an expression of grandfatherly concern. You could say that, Maya muttered. May I? Williams gestured to the empty chair across from her. Maya nodded, grateful for the distraction. Williams settled into his chair with the careful movements of someone whose joints had seen better days. Mr. Marcus can be challenging to work with, Williams said diplomatically, particularly when he's wrestling with matters of the heart. Maya nearly choked on her water. I'm sorry, what? William's eyes twinkled with mischief. My dear, I've worked for the Thompson family for 37 years. I helped raise that boy from the time he was 10 years old. I know when something or someone has gotten under his skin. I don't know what you think you know, but I know he's been pacing his office like a caged tiger for 3 days. Williams interrupted gently. I know he's reorganized his desk 4 times since Monday. And I know he asked me 17 questions about your favorite coffee order before settling on the brand we keep in the break room. Maya's protest died in her throat. 17. He's quite taken with you, I'm afraid, though he's trying very hard to pretend otherwise. It doesn't matter, Maya said firmly. We work together, that's all. Williams studied her with eyes that had seen decades of secrets and lies. You know, Mr. Marcus had a sister once. Twin sister, actually. Sophia. The change of subject was so abrupt that Maya blinked in confusion. Had. She died when they were 10. Leukemia. Williams's expression grew distant, sad. Beautiful little girl, full of life and mischief. She used to play with the housekeeper's granddaughter sometimes. When the girl came to visit, something cold settled in Maya's stomach. The housekeeper, Dorothy Johnson, lovely woman, worked for the family for nearly 30 years before she retired. Williams paused, watching Maya's face carefully. You wouldn't happen to be related to a Dorothy Johnson, would you? The cafe seemed to tilt around Maya. Her grandmother's name, spoken so casually, hit her like a physical blow. She was my grandmother. Williams's face lit up with genuine delight. Of course! I should have seen it immediately. You have her eyes, and that same stubborn set to your chin when you're determined about something. Maya's mind reeled. Her grandmother had worked for Marcus's family. They had known each other as children. All those summers when Grammy Dorothy had taken her to work because her parents couldn't afford childcare. All those hours spent playing in some rich family's garden while her grandmother cleaned their house. The little girl, Maya whispered. And the one who played with Sophia, that was me. Indeed it was. You were quite inseparable, you and Miss Sophia. Like sisters, Dorothy used to say. Williams reached across the table and patted Maya's hand gently. She was so proud of you, your grandmother. Used to carry pictures of your graduation, your architecture license. Said you were going to build beautiful things for people who needed them. Tears burned behind Maya's eyes. Her grandmother had died 2 years ago, and Maya still missed her fierce love and unwavering support every single day. Does Marcus know? Maya asked. I don't believe so. He was quite broken up after Sophia died, barely spoke for months. I think he's blocked out most of his memories from that time. Williams hesitated. But perhaps it's time he remembered. Maya shook her head frantically. No, you can't tell him. Please! My dear, he already thinks I'm some kind of obligation because of what happened between us. If he finds out about Grammy Dorothy, about Sophia, Maya's voice broke slightly, he'll think I'm using the connection somehow, that I manipulated this whole situation. Williams frowned. Mr. Marcus isn't that type of man. Isn't he? He's rich, powerful, probably has women throwing themselves at him constantly. And here I am, the housekeeper's granddaughter who slept with him and then conveniently showed up for a job interview. Maya laughed bitterly. It looks exactly like what it is. A poor girl trying to climb the social ladder. That's not what this is, and you know it. Do I? Maya stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need to get back to work. Maya, Williams called softly as she gathered her things. Your grandmother was one of the finest women I've ever known. She raised you to be strong and honest and kind. Don't let fear make you forget who you are. Maya paused, Williams's words hitting deeper than she wanted to admit. But fear was easier than hope, safer than the terrifying possibility that what she felt for Marcus might be real, might be worth fighting for. Some connections are better left buried, Maya said quietly, and walked away before Williams could respond. Back in the office, Maya threw herself into work with desperate intensity. She reorganized Marcus's filing system, updated his calendar, and drafted responses to 17 emails. Anything to keep her mind off the revelation that had turned her world upside down. Marcus returned from his afternoon meetings to find his office transformed into a model of efficiency. Every surface was clear, every document filed, every pen in its designated place. It should have been perfect. Instead, it felt sterile, empty. Maya, Marcus called through the open door connecting their offices. Could you come in here for a moment? Maya appeared in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. "Yes, Mr. Thompson." The formal address hit him like a slap. They'd been making progress, finding a rhythm that worked, despite the undercurrent of attraction between them. Now she looked at him like he was a stranger. "Is everything all right? You seem distant." "I'm fine, just focused on work." Maya's voice was crisp, professional, completely devoid of the warmth he'd been learning to crave. Marcus studied her face, noting the tension around her eyes, the way she held herself like she was preparing for battle. "Oh, did something happen at lunch?" "Nothing happened. Is there anything else you need? I'd like to finish the Hartwell contract revisions before tomorrow." Everything about her posture screamed that she wanted to be anywhere but here, talking to anyone but him. Marcus felt something twist in his chest, a familiar ache that reminded him of being 10 years old and watching his sister slip away piece by piece. "Maya, if I've done something—" "You haven't done anything," Maya interrupted. "We're colleagues. That's all we've ever been, all we can be. I think it's better if we keep things strictly professional from now on." The words were a knife between his ribs, sharp and final. Marcus nodded slowly, recognizing the walls slamming back into place around her heart. "Of course," he said quietly. "Strictly professional." But as Maya turned and walked back to her desk, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd lost something precious without ever understanding what it was. By Thursday, the tension in the Thompson Enterprises executive suite was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya had perfected the art of professional distance, speaking to Marcus only when necessary and maintaining a politeness so formal it bordered on hostile. Marcus, for his part, had retreated behind a wall of corporate authority that made him seem more unreachable than ever. Williams watched it all with growing frustration and decided to take matters into his own hands. "Mr. Marcus," he announced, appearing in the office doorway with his usual tea-time service, "I've taken the liberty of booking your travel arrangements for the Boston site visit tomorrow." Marcus looked up from his laptop, frowning. "Oh, I didn't ask you to book travel for Boston." "The Hartwell project, sir. The site inspection you mentioned on Monday." Williams set down the tea service with practiced ease. "Ms. Johnson's arrangements are confirmed as well. The 7 a.m. flight should have you both there by noon." "Both?" Marcus's voice was carefully controlled, but Maya could see the tension in his shoulders from her desk in the adjoining office. "Well, naturally Ms. Johnson will accompany you. She's been managing the Hartwell documentation, and her expertise in sustainable architecture makes her invaluable for the site assessment." Maya's pen snapped in half. She hadn't known about any site visit, had no expertise that made her invaluable for anything. This was Williams's doing, and they all knew it. "I don't think that's necessary," Marcus said slowly. "Oh, but it is," Williams insisted, his expression the picture of innocence. "Mr. Hartwell specifically requested that the assistant who's been handling his file be present, quite insistent about it. Actually, it was a lie, and a transparent one, but Williams delivered it with such conviction that even Maya almost believed him." "Fine," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "Book the flights." Maya shot to her feet, following Williams into the hallway as soon as Marcus returned to his laptop. "What are you doing?" she hissed. Williams adjusted his bow tie with infuriating calm, facilitating communication between my employer and his assistant. "By forcing us to travel together. Are you insane?" "My dear girl, watching you two circle each other like wounded animals is exhausting. Something has to give." "Nothing has to give. We're maintaining professional boundaries, exactly like we should." Williams turned to face her fully, and Maya was surprised by the steel in his usually kind eyes. "Professional boundaries are one thing. Emotional self-destruction is quite another." "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you? Because I've watched Mr. Marcus throw himself into work for 3 days straight rather than deal with whatever happened between you. And I've watched you organize the supply closet 4 times because you can't bear to sit still long enough to think about it." Maya's cheeks burned. "The supply closet needed organizing. The supply closet was perfect. You're both miserable, and you're making everyone around you miserable. Enough. Before Maya could respond, Williams was walking away, leaving her standing in the hallway with her heart pounding and her carefully constructed defenses crumbling around her edges. The flight to Boston was 47 minutes of exquisite torture. Maya had deliberately chosen a seat across the aisle from Marcus, but the cramped confines of first class meant she was still close enough to smell his cologne, to notice the way he gripped his coffee cup a little too tightly, to catch him stealing glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking. She tried to lose herself in the Hartwell project files, but the words swam together on the page. All she could think about was Williams's revelation about her grandmother, about the little girl she'd been who had played in the Thompson family garden, about the connection that bound her to Marcus in ways neither of them understood. The sustainable materials specifications look comprehensive, Marcus said suddenly, his voice carefully neutral. Maya looked up to find him studying the documents she'd prepared. I researched local suppliers for environmentally friendly options. The cost differential is minimal if we source carefully. Impressive work. His praise was professional, but Maya caught something warmer underneath. Your grandmother would be proud. The words hit like a physical blow. Maya's breath caught, and the file folder slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, papers scattering across the narrow aisle. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Marcus started, but Maya was already scrambling to collect the scattered documents, her cheeks burning with embarrassment and something deeper. It's fine, she muttered, not looking at him, just a figure of speech. But Marcus was studying her with new intensity, and Maya could practically see the wheels turning in his head. Maya, is there something you're not telling me? I don't know what you mean. Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to a murmur that wouldn't carry to the other passengers. You've been acting strange since Tuesday, distant, and just now, when I mentioned your grandmother. You don't know anything about my grandmother, Maya said sharply. Don't I? Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. Because something about this whole situation feels familiar in a way I can't quite place. Panic fluttered in Maya's chest. She could see recognition dawning in Marcus's expression, memories trying to surface despite the years and grief that had buried them. Mr. Thompson, Maya said formally, I think we should focus on the business at hand. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at her face with an intensity that made her want to hide, and Maya knew with horrible certainty that her carefully guarded secret was about to be exposed. The little girl, Marcus whispered, and Maya's heart stopped. In the garden, you had pigtails and you always wore yellow sundresses, and you used to build fairy houses out of twigs and leaves. Maya's world tilted sideways. Marcus, Sophia's friend. Dorothy's granddaughter. Marcus's voice was barely audible, filled with wonder and something that might have been pain. Maya, you're Maya. The airplane cabin suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Maya fumbled with her seatbelt, desperate to escape, but there was nowhere to run at 30,000 feet. I should have recognized you, Marcus continued, his voice stronger now. But you were so small then, and it's been so many years. Please, Maya whispered. Don't what? Don't remember the summer before Sophia died. Don't remember how you used to make her laugh when nothing else could. How you held her hand during the bad days and promised you'd be friends forever. Tears burned behind Maya's eyes. She did remember. She remembered a pale, thin girl with Marcus's dark eyes and a smile that could light up the world. She remembered tea parties in the garden and whispered secrets and the terrible day when Grammy Dorothy had told her that Sophia had gone to heaven. She talked about you constantly, Marcus said softly. Even at the end, she made me promise to find you someday, to make sure you were okay. Stop, Maya managed through the tightness in her throat. Is that why you ran that morning? Because you knew who I was. Maya shook her head, unable to speak past the emotions clogging her throat. Then why? Help me understand, because I've been going crazy trying to figure out what I did wrong. The plane hit turbulence. and Maya used the distraction to compose herself, to rebuild the walls that Marcus's words had shattered. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said finally, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. "This is just complicated." "Complicated doesn't begin to cover it," Marcus agreed. "Maya, what are the odds? What are the chances that after all these years we'd find each other again like this?" "Coincidence," Maya said firmly. "That's all." But even as she said it, Maya could see in Marcus's eyes that he didn't believe her any more than she believed herself. Some connections, Williams had said, were too strong to be buried by time or fear. And as the plane began its descent into Boston, Maya realized that her past was about to collide with her present in ways she wasn't prepared to handle. The Hartwell construction site was a sprawling testament to wealth and ambition. 30 acres of prime Boston real estate being transformed into a luxury resort that would cater to the kind of people who thought nothing of spending Maya's yearly salary on a weekend getaway. Maya stood at the edge of the property, architectural plans clutched in her hands, trying to focus on sustainable building practices and environmental impact assessments instead of the man beside her who seemed to be studying her more than the construction progress. "The solar panel array will be positioned here," she said, pointing to a cleared area on the eastern side of the property, her voice professionally steady despite the emotional chaos from their flight. "Oh, maximum sun exposure, minimal impact on the natural landscape." Marcus murmured. But when Maya glanced at him, his eyes were on her face, not the site plans. "Are you even listening to me?" "Every word," Marcus said. "You were saying something about sustainable material sourcing and local labor contracts. Very impressive, very thorough." Maya narrowed her eyes. "I was talking about solar panels." "Right, those too." The construction foreman approached, a burly man in a hard hat who looked like he'd been building things since before Maya was born. "Mr. Thompson, we've got the foundation issues you wanted to review." "Of course you do," Marcus muttered. "Show me." The next hour was a blur of technical discussions about soil compression, drainage systems, and structural integrity. Maya found herself impressed, despite everything. Marcus knew his business inside and out, asking the right questions and catching potential problems that lesser developers might have missed. It was only when they were walking back to the site office that disaster struck. "Maya Johnson, is that really you?" Maya froze at the sound of her name, slowly turning to find a man approaching from across the construction site. He was tall, distinguished, with silver hair and the kind of smile that had once made her stomach flutter with schoolgirl nerves. Now it made her sick. "Professor Blackwood," Maya managed, proud that her voice didn't shake. Richard Blackwood had been her favorite professor at Columbia, the man who'd encouraged her interest in sustainable architecture and recommended her for her first job. He'd also been the reason she'd left Morrison and Associates in disgrace. "And I heard you were working in New York now," Richard said, his eyes flickering appreciatively over her professional attire. "You look wonderful. Successful." "She is successful," Marcus said, stepping slightly closer to Maya's side. His voice was pleasant enough, but Maya could hear the edge underneath. "Mr. Blackwood, Richard Blackwood, Blackwood Development Corporation." Richard extended his hand with practiced charm. "And you must be Marcus Thompson. Your reputation precedes you." Marcus shook the offered hand, but his expression remained carefully neutral. "As does yours, apparently." Something flickered across Richard's face. Surprise, maybe even wariness. "I hope only good things." "Depends on your definition of good," Marcus replied smoothly. Maya watched the exchange with growing dread. She could practically see Marcus cataloguing every micro-expression, every tell that suggested Richard wasn't quite what he seemed. "Maya and I go way back," Richard continued, his smile broadening. "She was one of my most promising students, and later, one of my most dedicated employees." The way he said dedicated made Maya's skin crawl. She could see Marcus's jaw tighten, could feel the shift in his posture that suggested he was picking up on the subtext. "Yes, well," Maya said quickly, and that was a long time ago. If you'll excuse us, we have a schedule to keep. Of course, Richard said, but he made no move to leave. Actually, I was hoping we might have dinner while you're in town. Catch up on old times. I have a proposition that might interest you. I don't think, Maya started. She's not available, Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. Ms. Johnson and I have business to discuss tonight. Richard's eyes sharpened, flicking between Maya and Marcus with new interest. Miss Johnson? How formal. I remember when Maya preferred a more personal approach to professional relationships. The words hit their target with surgical precision. Maya felt heat flood her cheeks, and beside her, Marcus went very still. I beg your pardon. Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. Oh, did I say something wrong? Richard's expression was all innocence, but his eyes glittered with malice. I just meant that Maya has always been very hands-on with her work, very passionate about her projects. Richard, stop, Maya said, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. It's one of her most admirable qualities, Richard continued, that willingness to go above and beyond, to really invest herself in achieving the desired outcome. Maya could feel Marcus's anger building like storm pressure, could see the exact moment when understanding dawned in his expression. The memory of their first night together, when she told him about punching her boss, suddenly took on new context. This is him, Marcus said quietly. This is the boss you punched. Maya, you told him about that? Richard laughed, but there was nothing humorous in the sound. How intimate. Marcus moved so fast that Maya barely saw him coming. One moment Richard was standing there with his smug smile. The next he was pressed against the side of a construction trailer with Marcus's forearm across his throat. Let me make something very clear, Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. If you ever, and I mean ever, speak to or about Miss Johnson in that tone again, I will destroy you. Professionally, financially, personally, do we understand each other? Marcus, don't! Maya grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back. He's not worth it. Oh, but I am, Richard wheezed. In fact, I think this whole situation is very interesting. The Thompson heir defending the honor of his employee. How gallant. Marcus's grip tightened. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Just that Maya has a talent for finding herself in compromising positions with powerful men, Richard said, his smile returning despite the threat to his windpipe. It's a gift, really. The implication hung in the air like poison. Maya watched Marcus's face change, saw doubt creep into his expression as Richard's words found their mark. That's not what this is, Maya said desperately. Isn't it? Richard asked. Because from where I'm standing it looks remarkably familiar. Marcus released him abruptly, stepping back like he'd been burned. The doubt in his. She spent a lively night with a stranger. The next day, he hired her as his personal assistant. The silence on the flight back to New York was deafening. Maya stared out the airplane window, watching clouds drift past while trying to ignore the tension radiating from the man seated beside her. Marcus hadn't spoken to her since the confrontation with Richard Blackwood, beyond the strictly necessary yes and no responses required to conclude their site visit. The doubt she'd seen in his eyes during that terrible moment was still there, eating away at the fragile balance they'd managed to build. Richard had accomplished exactly what he'd intended, planted the seed of suspicion, made Marcus question Maya's motives for everything. "We need to talk," Marcus said finally, his voice low enough not to carry to the other passengers. Maya closed her eyes, gathering her courage. "I know. When we get back to the office, Marcus, about what he said." "Not here," Marcus cut her off, his tone sharp. "Not now." The rest of the flight passed in excruciating silence. Maya felt the weight of Marcus's gaze occasionally, but when she turned to meet his eyes, he was already looking elsewhere, his expression closed and unreadable. Back at the office, Marcus went straight to his office, closing the door behind him with a click that sounded like a death sentence. Maya sat at her desk, hands trembling slightly as she tried to focus on the emails that had accumulated in their absence. But the words on the screen blurred together, and all she could hear was Richard's poisonous voice echoing in her mind. Williams appeared beside her desk like an apparition, holding a steaming cup of tea. "You look like you need this," he said gently, placing the cup before her. "Thank you," Maya murmured, wrapping her hands around the warm porcelain. "The trip didn't go as planned. I take it." Maya let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that." Williams pulled over a chair and sat beside her, his expression concerned. "Want to talk about it? We ran into someone from my past. Someone who made Marcus question my motives for being here." "Ah," Williams nodded with understanding. "And you're letting him question them? It's not that simple, isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're preparing to run again." The accusation hit home. Maya looked at Williams, seeing compassion and wisdom in his gentle eyes. "It's not that simple. Love never is simple, my dear, but it's also not impossible." Maya nearly choked on her tea. "Love? Who said anything about love?" Williams smiled indulgently. "My dear child, I've been watching people fall in love for over 70 years. I recognize the signs." "You're mistaken." "Am I?" "Because the way you look at him, the way he transforms when you're around." Williams shook his head. "Two wounded hearts finding each other isn't coincidence. It's fate." Before Maya could respond, Marcus's office door opened abruptly. "Maya," his voice was controlled, but she could hear the tension underneath. "My office, now." Williams stood, giving Maya an encouraging pat on the shoulder. "Remember what your grandmother used to say about weathering storms," he whispered. Maya entered Marcus's office, closing the door behind her. He stood behind his desk, hands braced on the polished surface, jaw tight. "Sit," he said without looking up. "I'd rather stand." It wasn't a request. Maya sat, keeping her spine straight and chin lifted. If Marcus wanted a fight, she was ready. "How many others are there?" Marcus asked abruptly. Excuse me. How many other powerful men whose beds you've shared before, conveniently appearing in their professional lives?" The words hit like a slap across the face. Maya stood so quickly her chair nearly toppled. "How dare you? How dare I? How dare I?" Marcus finally looked up, and Maya saw fury and pain warring in his expression. "You slept with me and 3 days later showed up for a job interview. Your former boss implied you have a pattern of mixing business with pleasure. What conclusion should I draw?" "The conclusion that Richard Blackwood is a lying bastard who hates women who refuse to be his victims," Maya shouted, all her professional composure evaporating. "The conclusion that maybe, just maybe, you know me better than that." "Do I? Because it seems like there's a lot about you I don't know. Like the fact that you grew up playing in my family's garden. Like the fact that your grandmother worked for us for decades. Like the fact that you and my sister were friends." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "How did you—" "Williams told me. After the flight. Apparently, he thought I should know." Marcus moved closer, his dark eyes burning with emotion. "So tell me, Maya, was it all planned? Did you know who I was that night at the bar?" "No," Maya whispered. "And I swear to God I didn't know. But you knew afterward. When you came for the interview," Maya nodded miserably, "I recognized your name. And still you said nothing. What was I supposed to say? Hi, remember me? I'm the housekeeper's granddaughter who used to clean your house." Marcus recoiled, as if she'd struck him. "Is that how you see me? As some arrogant elitist who would look down on you as inferior? Isn't that how you see me?" Maya laughed bitterly. "Because you just accused me of being a gold digger who sleeps with men for money and position." The silence that followed was thick and painful. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his anger apparently shifting into something closer to despair. "I don't know what to believe," he said finally. "Everything seems too convenient." "Convenient," Maya repeated, testing the word. "You think it was convenient for me to discover that the man I had the most incredible night of my life with was someone I could never have? Someone whose world is so different from mine, we might as well be from different planets. Maya, you think it was convenient to fall in love with a man who clearly believes I'm capable of the worst motivations. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, raw and honest and completely vulnerable. Marcus went very still. You said you fell in love? Maya realized what she'd confessed and felt panic creeping in. That doesn't matter. How can it not matter? Because you don't trust me. Because you believe a man who harassed me instead of believing the woman who... Her voice failed. The woman who what? Marcus stepped closer, his voice low and intense. The woman who would do anything for you, Maya whispered. The woman who's in love with you, despite every logical reason why she shouldn't be. Marcus's breath caught. For a moment, the corporate mask slipped completely, and Maya saw the man underneath, vulnerable, conflicted, wanting to believe but afraid to hope. Maya, he said, her name rough on his lips. Don't, she said quickly, stepping back. Don't say something you'll regret later when you remember all the reasons this is impossible. What if I don't want to remember the reasons? The words hung between them, dangerous and electric. Maya felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble, and it terrified her. Then you're not thinking clearly, she managed. We both know this ends badly. Do we? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing I know for certain is that I haven't been able to think clearly since the moment I met you. Marcus moved closer, and Maya found herself trapped between his approaching form and the wall behind her. She could smell his cologne, could see the pulse beating in his throat, could feel the heat radiating from his body. This is a mistake, she breathed. Probably, Marcus agreed, but I'm tired of being careful. Tired of pretending I don't want you so much. It's driving me insane. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Maya's eyes fluttered closed at the contact she'd been craving despite every reason to resist. "Und Marcus," she whispered, and it sounded like surrender. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers. "Tell me this is wrong, that we can't do this, and I'll walk away." Maya opened her eyes, meeting his intense gaze. She should tell him to stop, should remind him of all the professional boundaries they were about to demolish, all the complications this would create. Instead, she reached up and pulled his mouth down to hers. The kiss was desperate, hungry, full of days of suppressed longing and the terrible fear that this might be their only chance. Marcus's hands tangled in her hair while Maya's fingers clutched at his shirt, pulling him closer, deeper, trying to memorize every sensation. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for doubting you, for letting that bastard get in my head." "Marcus, no, let me finish. I know who you are, Maya. I've always known, deep down. You're the girl who made my sister smile when nothing else could. You're the woman who punched a man for disrespecting her. You're honest and brave and beautiful, and I've been an ass." Tears burned behind Maya's eyes. "You were protecting yourself. I understand. Do you?" "Because I'm not sure I do." Marcus's hands framed her face, his thumbs wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "All I know is that I can't lose you again. Not after I just found you." Maya's heart clenched at the raw emotion in his voice. "You haven't lost me." "Haven't I? Because you look like you're about to run again." The truth of his words hit home. Maya realized she had been preparing for flight, already composing her resignation letter in her head. "Old habits," she admitted. "Break them," Marcus said simply. "Stay, fight for this, fight for us. What if it doesn't work? What if we destroy everything we've built? Then we rebuild," Marcus said with conviction. "But Maya, I'd rather crash and burn with you than spend another day pretending I don't love you." The words hit like lightning, illuminating everything Maya had been too afraid to acknowledge. Marcus loved her. This brilliant, complicated, impossibly attractive man loved her. "You love me," she whispered. "Desperately," Marcus admitted. "Probably since that first night, definitely since you told me off during the Hartwell meeting." Maya laughed through her tears. "That's a terrible reason to fall in love with someone." "Is it?" Because watching you reorganize my chaos, seeing you stand up to me when I'm being unreasonable, feeling like myself for the first time in years when I'm with you." Marcus shook his head. "I can't think of better reasons." Maya studied his face, searching for any sign of doubt or reservation. All she found was love, raw and honest and completely overwhelming. "This is crazy," she said. "Completely," Marcus agreed. "We work together. You're my boss. Details. People will talk. They'll say exactly what Richard said, that I'm using you. Let them." Marcus's voice was fierce. "The only opinion that matters is yours. So tell me, Maya Elizabeth Johnson, are you using me?" Maya smiled through her tears. "And only for your incredible organizational skills and your ability to make the perfect cup of coffee." "I don't make the coffee." "Then I guess I'll have to keep you around for other reasons." Marcus's smile was brilliant, transforming his entire face. "I can live with that." This time when he kissed her, it was soft and sweet and full of promise. Maya melted into him, finally allowing herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales could come true, even for housekeepers, granddaughters who fell in love with princes they were never supposed to have. When they finally broke apart, Marcus rested his chin on top of her head. "So what happens now?" Maya asked. "Now we figure it out as we go," Marcus said. "Together." Maya nodded, feeling lighter than she had in days. Together." Outside the office, Williams smiled to himself as he heard the murmur of reconciling voices through the door. Sometimes, he reflected, the best way to help people find their happiness was simply to refuse to let them settle for less than they deserved. After all, Dorothy Johnson had raised her granddaughter to be strong enough to claim her place in any world, even one that seemed impossibly far from where she'd started. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the executive bathroom at Thompson Enterprises, staring at her reflection and trying to calm her racing heart. Tonight was the annual Thompson Foundation Gala, New York's premier charity event, where the city's elite gathered to write enormous checks and see who could outshine whom. It was also going to be her debut as Marcus Thompson's girlfriend. They'd managed to keep their relationship quiet so far, maintaining professional facades during work hours, while stealing precious moments in Marcus's office after everyone else had gone home. But tonight would make everything public, and Maya was terrified. "You look beautiful," Marcus said, appearing in the bathroom doorway wearing a tuxedo that made her mouth go dry. "I look like I'm about to throw up," Maya replied, smoothing down the emerald green gown that had cost more than her old monthly salary. "That too." Marcus stepped behind her, his hands settling on her waist. "But mostly beautiful." In the mirror, they looked like they belonged together, him dark and elegant in his formal wear, her curves accentuated by silk that fell like water. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "What if they hate me?" she asked quietly. "They won't. What if they ask questions I can't answer? What if someone recognizes me from the Morrison and Associates scandal? Then they'll discover that you're brilliant and honest and completely worth their respect." Marcus turned her in his arms, his hands framing her face. "Maya, you belong here. Not because you're with me, but because you're extraordinary all on your own." Maya wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her confidence. "I don't know their world, Marcus. I don't know the rules." "Then we'll make our own rules." Before Maya could respond, Williams appeared in the office doorway, resplendent in his own formal attire. "The car is ready," he announced, then paused, studying Maya with approval. "You look lovely, my dear. Your grandmother would be so proud." Maya's eyes misted. "Thank you, Williams." "And Mr. Marcus." Williams's tone carried just a hint of warning. "Remember that this young lady is precious cargo. Always," Marcus promised solemnly. The ride to the Plaza Hotel was a blur of city lights and nervous energy. Maya's hand found Marcus's in the darkened limousine, and he squeezed her fingers reassuringly. "We don't have to stay long," he murmured. "Be just long enough to make an appearance, write a check, and show everyone that Maya Johnson is a force to be reckoned with." Maya managed a smile. "No pressure. The hotel ballroom was a vision of old-world elegance, crystal chandeliers, gold leaf details, and enough flowers to stock a small botanical garden. The guests were equally spectacular, draped in designer gowns and jewelry that could fund small countries. Maya felt every eye in the room turn toward them as Marcus led her down the marble staircase, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back. Marcus Thompson, a woman with platinum hair and diamonds dripping from her ears, descended on them like a fashionable vulture. "Darling, you look absolutely divine. And who is this lovely creature?" "Patricia Vanderbilt. Meet Maya Johnson," Marcus said smoothly. Patricia is on the board of the foundation." Patricia's smile was razor-sharp as she assessed Maya from head to toe. Johnson? That name sounds familiar. Are you related to the Johnsons of Newport?" "No," Maya said simply. "Brooklyn." "Oh." Patricia's smile faltered slightly. "How interesting. And what do you do, dear?" "I'm an architect." "How practical." Patricia's tone suggested that practicality was slightly distasteful. "And how did you and Marcus meet?" Maya felt the moment of truth approaching, like an oncoming train. She could lie, create some socially acceptable story about mutual friends or chance encounters at gallery openings. Instead, she lifted her chin and told the truth. "I was drowning my sorrows in overpriced martinis after getting fired for punching my sexually harassing boss. Marcus bought me a drink and we talked until last call." The silence that followed could have been cut with a knife. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish, and Maya could practically hear the society gossip mill starting to turn. Then Marcus started laughing, a rich, genuine sound that cut through the tension like sunshine through storm clouds. "That's my Maya," he said proudly, pulling her closer. "Never boring, always honest." Patricia recovered her composure, though her smile was strained. "How refreshing. Well, I simply must go powder my nose. Enjoy the party, darlings." As Patricia hurried away, probably to spread Maya's story to anyone who would listen, Maya turned to Marcus in panic. "I just ruined everything, didn't I?" "Are you kidding? You were perfect." Marcus's eyes sparkled with admiration. "Do you have any idea how many of these people spend their entire lives crafting personas to hide who they really are? And you just told Patricia Vanderbilt, the biggest gossip in Manhattan, exactly who you are without apology." She looked horrified. She looked intrigued. "Trust me, by tomorrow morning, half of New York will want to meet the woman who punched her boss and charmed Marcus Thompson." Before Maya could respond, a new voice interrupted them. "Maya? Maya Johnson." Maya turned to find a familiar face approaching, Sarah Chen, a classmate from Columbia who now worked for one of the city's most prestigious architectural firms. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "Representing Chen and Associates. We're major donors." Sarah's eyes widened as she took in Maya's elegant appearance and Marcus's protective proximity. "But more importantly, what are you doing here?" "Last I heard, you disappeared after the Morrison thing." Maya felt Marcus tense beside her at the mention of her past troubles, but his hand remained steady at her back. "I'm working for Thompson Enterprises now," Maya said carefully. "Thompson Enterprises." Sarah's gaze flicked to Marcus with new understanding. "As in?" "Marcus Thompson," he said, extending his hand with easy charm. "And Maya is my—" He paused, and Maya held her breath. "My partner." "In every sense of the word." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "Partner? Maya, you dark horse. Here I thought you'd fallen off the face of the earth, and instead you've been—" She gestured vaguely at Marcus's obvious wealth and status. "It's not what you think," Maya said quickly. "Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you landed on your feet in a pretty spectacular way." Maya felt the familiar sting of judgment, the assumption that her relationship with Marcus was somehow calculated rather than the messy, complicated, absolutely real thing it actually was. "Sarah," Marcus's voice carried a warning that made the other woman's smile falter. "I think you're misunderstanding the situation." "Am I?" "Because Maya always was clever about networking. Enough," Marcus stepped forward, and Sarah actually took a step back at the authority in his voice. Maya Johnson is the most brilliant architect I've ever met, as well as the most honest woman in this room. If you can't see that, then you're not as smart as your reputation suggests. Sarah's cheeks reddened. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, Maya said quietly, and it's fine. I understand how it looks. Maya, no, it's okay. Maya turned to Marcus, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. I need some air. I'll be on the terrace. Maya walked away before either of them could respond, navigating through the crowd with practiced grace while her heart hammered against her ribs. She found the terrace doors and slipped outside into the cool night air, grateful for the momentary escape from the suffocating atmosphere of judgment and speculation. The city spread out below her, glittering and infinite, and Maya wondered if she would ever truly belong in Marcus's world, or if she would always be the outsider looking in. Running away again, Maya turned to find Marcus silhouetted in the doorway, his expression unreadable in the dim light. And I needed a moment, she said, to think about whether this is worth it. The question hung between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Maya studied his face, seeing her own uncertainty reflected in his eyes. Are you having second thoughts? She asked instead of answering. Marcus moved to stand beside her at the railing, his shoulder brushing hers. Every day. And then I remember how it felt to wake up without you. How empty everything was before you turned my world upside down. Your world doesn't need turning upside down. It was perfect the way it was. Was it? Because I don't remember feeling alive before you. I remember going through the motions, playing the part everyone expected me to play, but not actually living. Maya's throat tightened at the raw honesty in his voice. This is hard, Marcus. Harder than I thought it would be. I know. But Maya, look at what we've built together in just 3 weeks. Look at how good we are together when we stop letting fear make our decisions. Maya thought about the late nights they'd spent in his office, working side by side on projects that excited them both, the way he'd supported her ideas for sustainable development in the Hartwell project, incorporating her vision seamlessly with his business acumen. The quiet moments when they'd talked about everything and nothing, building intimacy that went far beyond physical attraction. We are good together, she admitted. We're extraordinary together. And if a few narrow-minded society types can't see that, it's their loss. What about the others, the ones who aren't narrow-minded but still question my motives? Marcus turned to face her fully, his hands coming up to cup her face. Then we prove them wrong. Every day, in every way we can, we show them that what we have is real, that it's built on respect and understanding and love. And if we can't prove it, then we'll be happy anyway, because their approval isn't what makes this real. Our feelings are what make it real. Maya searched his eyes, finding nothing but sincerity and fierce determination. You're sure about this? About us? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Marcus's thumb traced along her cheekbone. The question is whether you're willing to take the leap with me. Maya thought about her grandmother, who had spent her life serving others, but had always taught Maya to never settle for less than she deserved. She thought about Sophia, the little girl who had dreamed of fairy tale endings and believed in the power of love to conquer all obstacles. Most of all, she thought about the man standing before her, brilliant, complex, infuriating, and absolutely perfect for her in ways she was still discovering. I'm terrified, she said honestly. Good. Terror means it matters. Maya smiled despite her fears. In that case, I'm in, completely, utterly, probably stupidly in. Marcus's answering smile was radiant. A probably stupidly is my favorite kind of in. This time when he kissed her, Maya didn't worry about who might see or what they might think. She lost herself in the warmth of his mouth, the strength of his arms, the promise of everything they could build together. When they finally broke apart, the city lights seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility rather than intimidation. Ready to go back in there and scandalize Patricia Vanderbilt some more? Marcus asked. Absolutely, Maya grinned. But this time, I'm taking the lead. Hand in hand, they walked back into the ballroom, ready to face whatever came next. Together, After all, Maya Johnson had never been one to back down from a challenge, and loving Marcus Thompson was turning out to be the greatest challenge of her life. It was also turning out to be the greatest gift. 6 months later, the rooftop of the new Thompson Community Center gleamed in the late afternoon sun, its glass panels reflecting the skyline of Brooklyn like a quiet promise. Maya stood near the edge, clipboard in hand, hard hat perched over her curls. She watched as construction crews moved across the site with precision, installing the final pieces of the solar panel system she had insisted on. The air smelled of fresh concrete and blooming tulips from the rooftop garden beds, another one of her ideas now coming to life. Behind her, footsteps approached, measured, confident, familiar. "I hear the director of the project has been terrorizing the engineers again," Marcus's voice teased as he joined her side, his suit jacket slung casually over his shoulder. Maya glanced at him, smiling. "Only the ones who think eco-friendly is a color palette," he chuckled, slipping an arm around her waist as they looked out over the finished courtyard below, where children would soon play and families would gather. "You built something beautiful," Marcus said quietly. "Not just a building, a legacy." Maya leaned into him. "We built it." Marcus tilted her chin up, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Your grandmother would be proud." "She is," Maya whispered, eyes shining. "I can feel it." A breeze rustled through the rooftop garden, lifting the edge of the dedication plaque they were about to unveil. Marcus reached over and peeled the protective cover off the engraved bronze. "Dorothy Johnson Community Center, in honor of strength, dignity, and the belief that everyone deserves a place to belong." Maya blinked back tears, her fingers tracing the name that had shaped her life. The press would arrive soon. There'd be speeches, ribbon cutting, and champagne. But in this quiet moment, Maya allowed herself to breathe, to feel, to hope. 6 months ago, she'd walked into a bar with nothing but a bruised heart and a wallet full of doubts. Now, she stood on top of the world, with the man she loved beside her, and a future she had built from the ground up, together. The end. Thanks for watching to the end. Did you like the story? Tell us what you thought in the comments below. We want to know what you think. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe now for more exciting stories you won't want to miss. Activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes out. See you in the next story. See you there.